All right, today we're going to dive into what I think might be the most important letter Warren Buffett has ever written. Seriously, this is basically his final word to all of us. A farewell letter that's packed not just with, investment advice, but with a whole lifetime of wisdom on how to live a really good, meaningful life.
He kicks the whole thing off with just three simple but really powerful words. I'm going quiet. And right away, that just hits you, right? It's this statement of finality that totally sets the stage for what he's about to share, which is basically the culmination of a lifetime of learning. He's stepping back for good, but not before giving us all one last gift. And you've got to understand, this letter, it's his entire legacy, distilled down to its essence. It weaves together all these core pillars of his life, things like the surprising power of his hometown, the undeniable role of just plain luck, his blueprint for how to give away a massive fortune, and maybe most importantly, the real secrets to building a life of character. So where does he even begin his story? Not in some fancy boardroom on Wall Street. Nope. He starts right in his hometown of Omaha, Nebraska. And this is key. For Buffett, success was never about escaping your roots. It was about being deeply, deeply planted in them. And that's really his first foundational lesson for all of us. And it's kind of wild to think about. His whole story almost ended before it even really began. Back in 1938, he gets this bad bellyache that turns into an emergency appendectomy. The letter says his recovery was, and I'm quoting here, dicey. But even then, his unique personality was already shining through. Get this, he spent his recovery time fingerprinting the hospital nuns. He was totally convinced he was going to help the FBI crack a case someday. So that little brush with fate kept him right there in Omaha. And as it turns out, his entire universe was right there with him. I mean, this is such a profound lesson. The most important people in his life, in his career, they weren't people he had to go find in New York or London. They were, and this is not an exaggeration, quite literally next door. I mean, just look at this roster of his world. His legendary partner, the one and only Charlie Munger, lived one block away. Don Q, the guy who would go on to lead Coca-Cola, yeah, he was right across the street. The architects of his newspaper and energy empires, all of them were within like a 5-block radius. It's incredible. Proximity literally built a dynasty. And Buffett tells this amazing story about his neighbor, Don Keogh. You remember the whole New Coke fiasco, right? Total disaster. Well, after it launched, Keogh admitted that any mail that showed up at headquarters addressed to the Supreme Idiot, it was brought straight to his desk. He just owned the mistake, brought back the classic formula, and guess what? Sales went through the roof. It's just a masterclass in checking your ego at the door and actually listening to your customers. So Buffett actually asks this question himself in the letter. Is there some magic ingredient in Omaha's water? Was it magic, or was it just the power of a community where relationships are built on trust, on shared values, and on a lifetime of just knowing one another? For him, Omaha wasn't just a place on a map. It was his single greatest advantage. Okay, so from the community that built him, Buffett pivots to his next huge theme, the totally unfair role of luck. I mean, after crediting his roots, he gets so candid about how much of his success really just came down to pure chance. And you have to admit, that's a stunningly humble thing to hear from one of the wealthiest people on the planet. He has this really interesting way of personifying life's two great forces. On one hand, you have Lady Luck. He calls her fickle and wildly unfair. She just hands out advantages completely at random. But on the other hand, you've got Father Time. And, well, Father Time is undefeated. He comes for every single one of us, and Buffett puts it so well. You know he's in the neighborhood when your balance, your sight, and your memory all start to fade. And Buffett believes his greatest win came long before he ever made a single dollar. He says he won the ovarian lottery. And just look at this winning ticket he's talking about. Born in 1930, healthy, white, male, in America. He's really quick to point out that his sisters, who were just as smart as he was, faced a completely different world. That head start, he insists, was his single most valuable inheritance, period. And this quote, it just really brings home the reality of getting older, doesn't it? He's not sugarcoating a thing. He's just being completely direct about the physical decline that, let's be honest, comes for all of us. And that kind of candor, it just makes his final pieces of advice feel so much more earned and urgent and just deeply authentic. Okay, so now we're getting to the real heart of the letter, the actionable stuff, the blueprint. Now that he's reflected on his roots and his luck, Buffett lays out his core principles on how to handle wealth, how to lead other people, and how to build character.
First up, his plan for philanthropy. And it's so simple, but also so profound. Step 1, he trusts his children completely. Step 2, he accepts that they're going to have to adapt to challenges he can't even see coming. And step 3, his core belief is just blunt. Ruling from the grave does not have a great record. I mean, wow. It's the ultimate lesson in letting go and actually empowering the next generation. Now, shifting gears into the corporate world, he uses this really powerful line to diagnose a problem he's been watching for decades, just out-of-control CEO pay. And he argues it wasn't driven by performance at all, but by something much, much more basic and, well, human. And here's his diagnosis in action. It's pretty simple. The CEO of Company A just looks over at what the CEO of Company B is making and tells their board, hey, I deserve more. And this just created what he calls a ratchet effect, a cycle of envy, not a cycle of value creation. It's a simple human flaw that completely and negatively reshaped corporate compensation. He also has this timeless, really reassuring message for every single investor out there. He says, look, markets are always going to be moody, they're capricious. He reminds everyone that Berkshire stock has literally been cut in half 3 times. And his advice? It's simple. Just stay calm, have faith in the long-term resilience of America, which for him means having faith in Berkshire. It's really the ultimate keep calm and carry on for your portfolio.
And that brings us to his final and I think most profound section. Here, he steps away from business completely to talk about legacy, and not the financial kind, but the human kind. And he frames this whole powerful idea with this absolutely fascinating story from history. So he tells this incredible story of Alfred Nobel, the inventor of dynamite. One day, a newspaper makes a huge mistake and publishes his obituary, confusing him with his brother who had actually died. And what Nobel read absolutely horrified him. He was remembered as the merchant of death. I mean, can you imagine reading that about yourself? This was the turning point. Seeing his legacy laid out right there in black and white was the ultimate wake-up call. And in that very moment, he resolved to change his life's work. He established the Nobel Prizes and completely rewrote how the world would remember him. Just incredible. And then Buffett turns that question directly to us, to you and me. We don't have to wait for some crazy newspaper mix-up. We can decide, today, right now, what we want to be remembered for. And that is such a powerful challenge to live intentionally, starting this very moment. So what's the secret? How do you write a great obituary for yourself? Well, for Buffett, the math is incredibly simple. Kindness. It's the only asset that is both totally costless and absolutely priceless. He believes it is the single greatest investment you can ever make in your legacy and in the world.
And he leaves us with these final golden rules. And they sound simple, but man, they're not easy. First, learn from your mistakes, but don't beat yourself up over them. Move on. Second, find the right heroes and copy them. Third, remember that the cleaning lady is just as much a human being as the chairman. And finally, never forget that Alfred Nobel proved it is never, ever too late to change.
And this is his final word. And it's really not advice, is it? It's a direct challenge. And it all comes from that Alfred Nobel story. After telling us all to decide what we want our own obituary to say, he leaves us with this command: live the life to deserve it. I mean, think about that. Given all the luck and the opportunities that we're given, are we doing that? Are you doing that? That's the question he leaves us all with. And it's maybe the most important one we will ever have to answer.